Well, Don, I'm excited to have this conversation. It's actually been like on my calendar on the week. It's been the thing I've been most looking forward to is I'm talking to Donald Miller. And it's funny because my wife is jealous. You're a household name in our family. She's an entrepreneur as well. When Storybrand came out, I just finally felt like this is like the most helpful thing or framework I've seen that made marketing and copy and even thinking about the way I talk about what I do fun. And I think it's because you chose movies I love. And when you started talking about Star Wars, and I mean, I started to see marketing so differently because of Storybrand. And I know that book has helped so many people. Even the guys at Kajabi, I think they include it in their swag box for Kajabi members. They buy a copy for everybody.
That's amazing.
It's just so great. So that was such a helpful framework. And then I know you're diving deeper into continuing to help small business owners, especially with this new book, How to Grow Your Small Business. My first question, though, is this is a weird year, right? This is a weird year. Everyone's talking about recessions, economic collapses, but you decided to write a book in the last year or so about how to grow your small business, which seems counterintuitive. A lot of people are just retreating. So why this book and why now?
Well, I mean, if we are going into a recession, which as of yesterday, there's a 67% chance, according to whoever in the world comes up with those numbers.
Right.
I still think the economy is too chaotic, if you will, to accurately predict a recession. However, we are dealing with inflation. We're dealing with major trade issues with China that's going to disrupt supply chain. AI is going to disrupt the workforce. I know IBM is thinking about laying off 8,000 or predicts 8,000 jobs being replaced with artificial intelligence. So we're going into economic disruption. Everybody, when we go into something like an economic disruption or a recession, they retreat, and it is the worst thing you can possibly do. What you need is a growth plan, because if you execute a growth plan now, one of the things that could happen is you stay the same, where your business would have declined. So if you sharpen your marketing messages, sharpen your sales process, sharpen your focus and vision, have 3 economic objectives is something I recommend in the book, and make sure that you are able to execute on those objectives. Go into a growth plan. And if you do that, you have a much more likely chance of not just surviving, but actually staying the same or even growing. We did this, 85% of my business was dependent on people flying to Nashville, Tennessee and attending one of our workshops. When COVID hit, that obviously was just massively disrupted. So I was looking at losing 85% of my revenue.
Wow.
And instead, we executed a growth plan and a growth strategy and saw a 30% increase in overall revenue and an additional about 15% increase in profit. And that's the key. And really, any small business owner who wants to survive and wants to thrive needs to do that every year, whether or not they're going into a recession or not. You need a growth plan. How are you going to grow this year? What are you going to grow? How are you going to make that happen? So your survival in a recession is all about coming up with and executing a growth plan.
I love that. I love that you sort of alluded to even staying the same is a win. I'm in the digital space, right? And my students are course creators. It's a weird world where you can get really out of whack in terms of your expectations of, wow, we can 2x every single year because the margins are almost infinite and you can grow and scale really quickly, that you get to a point where, at least I have in a couple of businesses where I feel like, shouldn't I be growing more? But almost years later in hindsight, I see some of the things I was trying to do that I thought were going to grow the business actually helped me stay the same one year or maybe grow by 5%, where actually it was heading in a bad direction. I didn't realize it at the time, but had I not had some new initiative or a new income stream, I probably would have gone backwards. And what I thought was that's sort of a flat year was actually a huge win in hindsight.
Right.
Do you see that a lot in businesses?
What you have to do is you have to count the 20% decline or attrition that you would have had as growth. So that didn't happen. Of course, those numbers are invisible.
Sure.
But if you listen, if you don't put effort into growing your business, it will shrink. There is no coasting. That doesn't exist. If you are moving and you don't have your foot on the accelerator, you're going downhill. It's the only thing that happens.
Wow.
And so, you've got to keep your foot on the accelerator at all time. I do believe in rhythms, and so there are times when you catch your breath and you breathe. That's on weekends, and if you need to take a 3-day weekend every once in a while on a vacation, all that kind of stuff. The rest of the time, you got to have your foot on the pedal, because somebody else is going to disrupt you, and they're going to have their foot on the pedal. So the key there is to have a plan to optimize your small business for growth and execute that plan. That's the key.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Well, let's get into some of it. In the book, you've got 6 things that entrepreneurs should focus on to make a profitable business. Profit being key, right? Because top line revenue is one thing, but at the end of the day, profit is important. So can you, for one, like, how do you take us through this process of distilling something as complex as business, and everyone's business is different, there's so many moving parts. How do you distill it into 6 areas, and how do you feel like you came to those 6 areas? These are the sort of the dials, as it were. If you focus on these 6 areas, you can grow your small business.
Well, 25% of small businesses fail within 12 months, which is, if you think about that, that's astronomical. Yeah. But it gets worse. 45% die within 5 years and 65% within 10 years. So, the odds are against you making it. So what I did was just took a look at the reasons that those 65% die, and then tried to preempt those catastrophes. And they really boiled down to 6 sections, if you will, of your business. Leadership, which for me is all about casting a vision, and the right kind of vision, and that is an economic vision. Marketing, clarifying your marketing message and creating a sales funnel. Sales, being able to have conversations that invite customers into a story so that you can close the sales. Product optimization, and that is just taking a look at the products that you are offering and figuring out how to, between you and me, Graham, and everybody listening, how to charge more for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, you just need more money. And so if you can actually create more value, then you can charge more for those products. And I can give you some examples of some of my clients who've done that. Yeah. Then there's the overhead and operations, which is, your biggest cost is probably labor. Even if you're a solo operation, you are the biggest cost.
Sure.
So the more productivity you can get out of your labor, the more lean your business is. And so you need a management system, a way to manage people. And then finally, you need a system to help you manage cash flow. And so the book is 6 chapters. It's not a long book.
Yeah.
Extremely practical step-by-step advice to overhaul your leadership, your marketing, your sales, your product optimization, your management, and your cash flow. So it is an instruction book on how to run a business. Now, the reason it's a growth plan is because most businesses are not run very well. And they're as business owners, we're duct taping things together. Mm-hmm. We're only working on problems that are in crisis mode, and we've just not built the thing the right way. And I actually think that's a good thing, because when you start a business, you just have to do what I call diving for dollars. Mm-hmm. It's like, we don't have time to build a beautiful machine. I don't have private equity handing me millions of dollars a month, right? I've got to build this on a shoestring. So that's a really good thing. But for the listeners who are listening and you're saying, okay, my business is, it's making money, it's off the ground, it might be time to rebuild it the right way. And when you rebuild it the right way, it actually grows much, much easier.
I love that. I mean, a good example was me when I started my first business. This was 2009, the Recording Revolution. I got connected with a few other people in the music production space. We were all YouTubers, bloggers, teaching similar stuff, and we kind of rallied around each other and tried to encourage each other. It was like an informal mastermind. It didn't last long because I realized early on that we just are not aligned on so many facets, one of which was I was giving away so much content for free, and they thought I should be charging for it. But I was like, I think this is how I'm going to grow my audience, is by teaching for free. And they were like, nah. But one of the things I realized that I instinctively had, you call it diving for dollars, I was broke. I mean, I was on food stamps. I had a wife and a baby. We moved to Tampa. I didn't know anybody. I needed to make money. And so I wasn't desperate in the sense like I'll do anything, but I was like, all that matters is, can I add value enough where someone would pay for something, and just figure out what is the offer right now that I can make money off of. And some of the guys in that group were so proud of what you called the system that they were building, and they had the best funnel and their website, and they had this ad strategy, but none of it was implemented yet. Like, it was all in their theory, and they showed me their deck. Yeah. And I was like, and it looked super impressive. And I actually felt very insecure around them because they knew more about business than I did. They knew probably these 6 dials, as it were. And I was just like, I'm just getting on YouTube and I'm trying to collect some emails and I'm trying to come up with a course I could sell them and just see if it works. And it was messy and I felt foolish, but I was starting to get some cash flow in the business, and those guys went out of business. I don't even know if they ever got into business, to be honest.
Well,
and I figured it out as I went.
Yeah, that's because you did the most important part, which is take action.
Right.
I mean, if you take action on a really bad plan, you're going to do much better than somebody who doesn't take action on a really great plan.
100% of the time.
That makes sense.
Yep.
And so it's like, hey, don't forget to move, right? I always say ship at 80%.
Yes.
You know, especially those of us who are perfectionists. I mean, you know, those of us who are you know, those of us who really just have to do everything perfectly. We get hung up in the final 20% of creating any kind of product or any kind of idea, writing a song, whatever.
Sure.
You get caught up on the final 20%. So, and that final 20%, right, can take years, years. Yeah. I have friends living in Nashville who are in the music industry who have beautiful records. I mean, a beautiful 10, 12 song record that anybody would love, and they won't release it for years because they're working on the final 20%.
Wow.
And I'm like, when I listen to this, it just sounds like a record, man. It sounds done to me. Get it out there. And so I think those of us who are perfectionists need to do the 80% rule, and that is when you feel like it's 80% there, let it go and start making money on it. You can, by the way, you can iterate and improve on it after you let it go. The reality is your 80% is going to be perceived as 100% from your entire audience.
That's
that's not an excuse to ship bad stuff, but it's just an excuse to say, look, the problems that you see in this thing, other people probably are not going to see, and it's going to cost you so much, as much time to get the last 20% as it did to get the front 80%, that you are losing money every day that you're not shipping this thing.
Yeah, that's so great. Can I get meta for a second?
Yes.
You're an artist, you're an author. Have you felt that way with your books, whether it's in the fiction side or the nonfiction side? Like, do you know internally now this book is 80% ready to deliver the manuscript, or do you get caught up in the final percent to make it just right? Like, where do you find that perfectionism in your own work?
Well, if I had my way, I would never release a book. I just enjoy writing and editing them. The only problem is God designed me with this quirk, and I don't know if the audience identifies with this or not, but I have this thing that happens in my body. I have to eat food. And in order to eat food, I have to pay for it. I don't know if anybody can identify with that.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. You can only intermittent fast for so long.
Yeah, exactly. And I would, by the way. I'd go years not eating so that I could keep editing my book. But at some point you go, okay, I got to pay rent. And so it was the deadlines that the publisher established that made me ship at 80%. Now, there was a book, and I can't remember which book it was, but I remember I had the luxury of the time to keep editing and cleaning it and cleaning it and cleaning it. And
did that help?
I think it actually hurt the book. I don't think it ruined the book. I just think the book was so clean by the end of it that it didn't really feel human anymore. Wow. And the other thing is, like, as you edit a book over and over, you know, let's say, Graham, that there's a joke in the book that you think is funny. Now you're editing the book, and the second time you're still like so proud of that joke, and the third time you think, you know, that's really funny, my friends are gonna love it. The fourth time is like, you know, it used to be funnier than it is, and the fifth time is like, that's not funny. You cut it out of the book without realizing that the reader is reading this for the first time, and they actually think it's funny. So you know, you do that with jokes, you do that with ideas, and there comes a point. Blue Like Jazz was my first breakaway book, and I edited that book 54 times.
Wow.
From beginning to end, 54 times. And it's a really clean book. But I also wonder if there weren't anecdotes and things in that book that might have been better left in the book. You know, when I read Dave Eggers' A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius, that's a book that shipped at 80%. And because it shipped at 80%, it's really a fun read. You know, you sort of identify with the quirks of it. And he even opens the book by saying, if you want to get this out of the book, skip chapter 3. If you want to get this out of the book,
I can
skip
appreciate
chapter 4. Yeah, you know, it's really kind of a fun thing. So I think perfection, it's very, very hard for people to resonate and identify with perfection. Now, it needs to be good. Don't get me wrong. But perfect is the enemy of great. Really,
Yeah.
it really is.
Man, I mean, in getting it all ties together for me. But so this is sort of a selfish conversation. But even the meta layer of your book, Building a Story Brand, which is probably going to line up with the marketing side of the 6
Yes.
steps here in your book. And that has helped so many people. I wonder, and maybe in your experience too, as you're coaching small business owners and people are coming to you, or even on your podcast and having these conversations. I would imagine, because my experience is that marketing is one of those areas where perfectionism gets the best of us, especially if we're newer in business, we're doing the copy ourselves, clarifying our message. We read the book, it's so helpful, makes sense, but then it's just like, but is it the perfect way to say what my offer is, or say what I do, or the headline on my homepage? Like, I understand how powerful that is. Do you find that people really get stuck there and even need to just shift their marketing messaging at 80% as well?
I do think that people get stuck in their marketing, and they get stuck in the wrong place. Where people get stuck in their small business marketing is they get stuck on the way the brand looks and the way the brand feels. And I think you can spend half the amount of time that you're currently spending on look and feel, although I think style guides and things like that are very important. But what you really need to think about is your offer. And that's part marketing and part business strategy. Will somebody buy this, this, and this for this price if I give them the bonus of this? That sentence that I just said is 75% of your marketing. And we've done it. We've all done it. If you go to an Amazon page to buy a product, I guarantee you that is an ugly page. That has links all over the place, way too much text.
Yeah.
If you weren't familiar with it, it would be entirely confusing. You ever tried to watch a video on Amazon Prime trying to find that video?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's a nightmare.
They're one of the largest companies in the world. And the reason is people know what they're getting. They know what it costs. There's a description of it. And the habit they have of buying products from Amazon is worth literally billions of dollars. I think what we're trying to do sometimes as young business owners is we're trying to project an identity,
Oh, yes.
like our identity inside of our business, rather than sell products. And that is a great way to crash a business. It's a great way to crash a business. So the bottom line is work on your offer as much or more than you work on your brand identity, and your business has a much more likelihood to survive.
Wow, that's so insightful. Do you have an example of a client or a student or a business you've seen where you felt like they got hung up on focusing on their identity too much and didn't get clear messaging on just the offer itself?
Well, I do have stories, but they're terrible, and I don't want to name names.
No,
I'll give you a hypothetical that is a conglomerate of 50
there we go.
different businesses that I've known. And what it is they do rounds of funding. And so somebody, the first round would be, they end up with $500,000. And the very first thing they do is they go buy like swag. They come up with the logo and they buy swag. And I'm just like, I would rather take that $500,000 and create an entry-level product that you can sell so you can turn it into $1 million.
Yeah.
So they start working on their brand identity and all that kind of stuff. If they're lucky enough or unlucky enough to, get millions and millions in funding, they'll go buy an office building. Or worse, they'll lease an office building in a really nice part of town and decorate it really beautifully and fill it with ping pong tables and kegs and cereal bars. And none of that makes money. None of that makes money. Yeah. And so what you're doing is you're bloating your overhead, and it's not going to help you in the with your bottom line. We see Vice right now, the company Vice, the news outlet, going bankrupt, and the ugly truth about Vice is they never made any money. They never made a single dollar in profit the entire time that they existed, and now they're going bankrupt. But they have this wonderful identity, this brand identity that so many people identified with and really liked. And man, you just spent too much money on it. Bottom line, you spent too much money looking like a rock star and not enough money on actual product that people would want to pay money for. I think of these businesses as hackberries. There's a tree in Tennessee where I live called a hackberry. And hackberries really are pretty trees. They look like elephant feet. They're kind of gray, and they come up out of the ground with these really solid bases, and they grow lightning fast. I mean, in 20 years, you can have a hackberry that looks like a 100-year-old oak.
Wow.
The problem with a hackberry is it's nearly hollow inside, and the wood is so bad you can't even use it as firewood. It burns up in an instant like a piece of paper. You can't build with it. You can't do anything with it. And they're very dangerous because they get very tall, very heavy, and then they fall on you.
Wow, it's a deep metaphor right there, man.
It's a deep metaphor, and I think a lot of businesses are built like hackberries. And the reality is an oak tree takes a minute. An oak tree takes a minute, and you got to get it right. So you want to build your product offering so that it's in demand and profitable, then build your messaging in order to sell that product, then build your brand around those two things.
That's so powerful. Man, I think of the digital equivalent for a lot of solopreneurs, course creators, coaches, spending as much money as they can on all the tools, obsessing over, should I use Kajabi to host my courses versus, Podia? Should I, and hiring quickly, like I'm going to have a video editor and I'm going to do this. And they're already, it's like, I love the 4-hour work week and I can appreciate all of that, but they're already like hiring out and delegating everything. They've never done it themselves. And so they have their costs, which is one of the steps, the overhead and operations and managing your costs, really, really high. And they're trying to have the best looking website. They're really concerned with, to your point, the visual, how they come across, and not nearly, okay, now it's time maybe to start focusing on an offer. And then the problem is the offer isn't the thing that on the outside, when you compare yourself to other businesses, you see the outside, but you don't see really the secret sauce, which is they've figured out what the offer is, if it's good, or they haven't, if it's not good. And so I think it's easy to just mimic a nice looking brand, whether it's digitally, virtually, or brick and mortar, and play the part of being in business without ever doing the thing that makes the business run. And I was thinking about this because I'm trying to get into more public speaking, and I've been, working with speaking coaches and learning from some of the best. And I'm like, I can communicate and I can see people who are great communicators, but what are they doing under the surface when they're crafting a keynote or crafting a message? And as I'm learning, it's so funny because it's just like what we do in business and it's just marketing. It's just an offer. Like literally I was taking a speaking course and the framework was product, solution, action, it's the PSA. I'm like, well, that's how I'll write a sales page. It's very much not, there's all the fun things, the stories, the humor, what you wear, how you sound, those spice it up, but it's like the core of a good talk is like, what is it about? I think of your book, like clarify your message. If you confuse, you lose. A lot of talks are so confusing. What's the one message I'm supposed to take away from this keynote? I forget. I walk away and say, I think that was good, but I don't remember. And I'm just seeing there's these parallels of what is the thing, as where I'm getting at, underneath all of this, the dressings of a business. And it's the offer at the end of the day, which means you have to know the audience that you're going to serve and what they want and need.
That and as a speaker, Graham, what you want to do is you want to own a specific problem. And you want that to be a problem that plenty of conference attendees have, right? And so if I'm just making stuff up, but if you want to speak to dental practitioners everywhere, the problem might be how to increase your profit margin, or how to use new technology, or how to franchise a dental operation. If you're known as the person who is the expert at that, you're going to speak at every dental conference. You know what I mean? So if you're known as the person who helps you make online courses, you're probably going to speak at a lot of different small business organizations because people want to get into online courses. If you're the person on how to use AI to grow a small business, you're going to speak at every conference in this country. Yeah. Right? Because that's what everybody's wondering right now. And so, every talk that you give, every keynote that you give is a product, and the person buying it is actually the event coordinator.
Yes.
So your
100%.
customer is not the audience. Your customer is the event coordinator who needs to book somebody at a good price who will deliver massive value to the audience. I would spend 50% of your time working on your keynote and the other 50% of the time working on your offer to event coordinators. Yeah. And if you do that, you'll have a successful career.
Hey friend, we'll get back to the episode in just a moment, but I wanted to give you a gift for hanging out with me today. I want to give you my 30-day online income jumpstart guide. This is a 4-week checklist bullet points to go from zero audience, zero customers, maybe even zero idea of what your business should be, to putting money in your pocket 30 days from now. It won't be $1 million in 30 days, but it will be money in your pocket. You will have figured out your idea. You will have tested your idea. You will have launched your idea and taken massive action towards building a business and a life that you love. If you already know your business idea, but you've been sitting around and you haven't taken action on it, then you need this guy, because it'll walk you through a 4-week plan to go from where you are to putting money in your pocket in 30 days. And if you've never figured out what your business idea is and you have no followers online and no audience, it's okay. This will help you start at zero. I promise you. It's a PDF. It's fast. It's easy to read. It's not an ebook. You don't have to spend a lot of time on this. It's more about taking action and doing the right things in the right order. And it's free as my gift to you. So just go to grahamcochrane.com/jumpstart to get your 30-day online income jumpstart guide. It's grahamcochrane.com/jumpstart. Now back to the episode. That's so wise. I love it. So, okay, these 6, I love how you've broken down, growth plan for your business into 6 areas. I always feel like if you take a big problem, which you're solving in your book, How to Grow Your Small Business, great name, by the way, take that big problem, which can feel overwhelming, break it down into, okay, well, here's 6 specific areas you could improve. If you had some improvement in all 6 of these areas, I like the language of dials, right? If you dialed it up a little bit in these 6 areas, you would see massive improvement, which I love. So 2 things about this. One, I just want to zoom out for a second, since I'm a fan of your work and the way you teach. I feel like you, maybe you would agree with this, but I feel like you're one of those people who has the rare ability to take very complex and overwhelming things and teach it to somebody in a way that's like, why didn't I think of that? Or that sounds so easy, or I could do that, which is an empowerment technique, which I think is the most impressive form of teaching, is not just transfer of knowledge or even having, allowing light bulbs to go on and giving people insights, but having them walk away feeling like, I can actually do this. Do you feel like you always had that gift? Have you discovered that about yourself? Did you feel like people say that about you? Because you've done it really well in every book I've read of yours.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't want to sound arrogant, but I think if I'm good at anything, it's making very complex things simple. But I don't do it the way that most people think I'm doing it. There's really a root belief that causes me to simplify so much, and that is, I do not believe in magic. In other words, if somebody accomplishes something, I don't believe they got lucky, and I don't believe they got struck by lightning. I don't believe that. I believe they did something. And I don't think it was probably that complicated. And the sad truth is, a lot of people who are really successful won't tell you what they did or how they did it, and they may not even know. And luck does play a part in it. But by the way, if you use the right strategy, you tend to get a lot more lucky, right?
Yep.
And so what I like doing is just going and say, what's really happening here? What's really happening? This person has scaled up $1 billion business. What really happened? And what really happened is they did this, 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 and this, and it's almost never intuitive. It's almost never what people are thinking. So, with marketing, you see these brands that are really enormous, and you kind of say, okay, what are they really doing? Like, does Coca-Cola taste that good? Does it taste that much better than Pepsi or RC Cola or whatever? Yeah, maybe. I mean, but I don't know that that's how they grew. What they really did was, first, they invited customers into a story. That was 100 years ago. And then they started creating branding that people attached to their self map. So you literally became a Coca-Cola person or a Pepsi person. That's how they did it. And then they also offered, as a secret of their strategy, this is a secret to anybody's strategy who's listening to me right now, they offered millions of businesses ways to make a lot of money. So every 7-Eleven you go in is making a ton of money off Coca-Cola. Every movie theater you go in is making a ton of money off Coca-Cola. Every Chick-fil-A you visit is making a ton of money off Coca-Cola. How does Coca-Cola make money? They make other people a lot more. That's how they do it. And so, it's a magic trick. But nobody's sitting there going, well, Coca-Cola's not going to sit there and go, we're in the money business. Wow. We actually just make people money, and we take a piece. But that's exactly the business that they're in.
That's fascinating. So your obsession with just like reverse engineering success or what people are doing behind the scenes, you think leads you to be able to communicate that in those steps. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah. That's really it. Just say, things can't be a mystery to you.
Yeah.
you've got to look and you got to say, okay, how are they really doing this? Just like, my wife and I do a anti-human trafficking fundraiser every year. And last year we had fun because, an anti-human trafficking fundraiser can feel very heavy,
Yeah,
And
sure.
so we did this thing where we invited 3 magicians to come, and they just kind of stood around at the cocktail portion of it and did some tricks. And then you could go upstairs and watch a 5-minute magic show. It was really fun. It was really cute. And but what's everybody thinking when they're watching this magic trick? They're trying to figure out how he did it, right? He's got something up his sleeve, or there's a magnet in his ring, or whatever's going on. And I think that's the sort of curiosity that you want to have when you're looking at any of your friends' successful businesses, rather than go, "Gosh, they're lucky." You're done. That's called a thought stopper.
Wow.
When you say that person is lucky, you stop thinking about how they did it, and you got that. You don't say that. Just go, "How are they doing it?" And a lot of times with a guy like me and a guy like you, Graham, we'll sit down and tell you.
Yeah.
We're not hiding anything. You put the ace card right here and you put the magnet on the ring and you move it around like that's how you do it. And listen to that and believe in your ability to learn how to do it and then do it.
Wow, that's so good. I always feel like the idea of taking a statement and turning it into a question with a how at the front of it just unlocks so many possibilities.
Yeah.
I can't afford a house in this city. How could I afford a house in this city?
There you go.
It's just such great. It just opens up your mind.
That's a great piece of advice, Graham. Yeah, that really is.
So these 6 areas real quick. I love them, right? And I love the book and I love the flow. What's the one, if people are like, I'm overwhelmed, I need help in all 6. They're reading your book and they're like, I do need to improve. And they probably do. We all need to work on all 6. Is there one that kind of becomes a domino effect? If I could improve a little bit in this area, it would really help me improve the other ones faster?
Yes. Chapter 1 is about overhauling your guiding principles. The first part of that chapter is about overhauling your mission statement. And the first part of your mission statement, which I think is foundational, it's the lead domino, is 3 economic objectives. So you literally, your mission statement needs to start with, we are going to sell this many of this unit, this many of this unit. Let me start over because I just got a little ding there. I hope
You're fine.
Your mission statement needs to start with, we're going to sell this many of this unit, this many of this unit, and this many of this unit by this deadline because of the reason that it matters. That there's a formula. We will accomplish X by Y because of Z that I share in the book. But the X are 3 economic objectives. And the reason I choose 3 is because the human brain has trouble prioritizing more than 3 things at a time. And so for you to be able to say, hey, where do we really make our money? What are the 3 things that we sell where we make usually 80% of our money for most small businesses? And then actually set a goal to perhaps double those. So if you sell online courses and you sell 500 a year, your goal is going to sell 1,000 of them. If you upsell, monthly or weekly consulting and you sell 20 of those, you're going to try to sell 40. And once you actually establish those 3 goals, everything else, and what I mean by that is your business plan starts to fall into place.
Yeah.
Because now you're asking myself, okay, how are we going to do that?
Yeah.
And then you're like, we're going to need a lead generator. We're going to need a landing page. We're going to need to be on keynote stages. And all of a sudden your workload just goes up. But if you sit there and go, I really want to make twice as much money, good luck trying to figure out how.
Yes. I love that. And I think the exact same way. That's why I love your book. Like, I think the exact same way of like, big question, I have to break it down. What do I need to do every week to make that a reality? And I actually feel like the weight gets lighter the moment I start to identify it as you described. Like, okay, well, I have this many people in the membership. To get to my revenue goal, this next year I need to reach this many people in the membership. And so what is that going to take? Well, how many times am I promoting it? And what's my offer look like? And could I upsell other courses into the membership to get more people? It just makes it more of like a thing I can go do now, as opposed to I wish I could 2x my business. It's so a practical and takes the concepts and turns it into action, I think.
Yeah, I hope so. And that's the idea is, there hasn't been a playbook that has been written in very simple language that helps people grow a small business. And if you go get an MBA from any school, you're going to learn about mergers and acquisitions. You're going to learn about dealing with private equity. You're going to be qualified by the time you get an MBA to be chairman of the Federal Reserve. And you know how many of those are? There's one.
One.
You aren't getting that job,
Yep.
and you're going to forget how to do it by the time they offer you the job. So you need to know how to make money. And this book is really just about saying, hey, if you've got a small business, here's how to make more money with it.
I love that. And last kind of question around the book here as we wrap up in a second is, let's say someone reads it and they start to apply it and they're all in on these 6 steps. How long do you think it would take to turn things around, or at least start to see some positive momentum for the average small business in applying your book?
The book is designed to double your run rate within 6 months if you are a sub-$1 million business. If you are larger than $1 million business, it's going to take longer than that. If you want to double your run rate as a $5 million business, it's going to take at least 12 months. But within 6 months, you could have a 30% increase on your run rate. And what I mean by that is if you're making $1 million a month, within 6 months, you could be making 1.3. Every step of the 6 steps is designed to increase revenue because businesses eat cash, and they eat a lot of it. And so I know what small business owners need. They need cash, especially going into a recession. You need money. And so the business is designed to, if you're sub $1 million, I think you can double your run rate by the end of 6 months, which means if you're $1 million business, after 6 months, the subsequent 12 months, you're going to make $2 million. Yeah. I hope. That's the hope. And it was designed with that idea in mind.
And I hope everyone's listening to that. Just there's a meta moment right there. The way Donald's talking about the problem he's trying to solve in the book, and then the specificity, that's the word, specificity of it.
I'm not going to try to say it. You said
it. Like, look at how deep, this is a lesson for us, how deep he thought about who this book is really going to be for, sub $1 million. And this is sort of the outcome. If you apply it, you can achieve this more than likely. If you're over $1 million, considering this, that's how deep he's thinking about it, so that he's then even crafting the book. And therefore, think about your product. If it's a course or a membership, don't just I help people now, grow their online business, start or grow their online business, but that's so vague, right? So my community, for example, the 6-figure coaching community, I had to get really specific. I want people who've already launched an online business, scale to $10,000 a month or more, working 20 hours a week or less. And that's very specific. If you're already making $100,000, it's not really for you, but we can probably help you get to multi 6 figures or 7, but it's really for a specific type of person to reach a specific objective. And when you identify that for yourself, and I'm sure you felt this way, Don, there's so much more clarity as you're creating the book or the offer, because you know who it's for, and you're going to address everything and just line it up for that person to reach that goal, as opposed to general advice on how to just grow, although it will apply to everybody in that regard. So anyway, I thought that was a meta moment right there of how we can think about our products.
People need to be able to see themselves in the offer and realize they can do that, or they want that.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're selling really great family memories, good luck. If you're selling a playground you can put in the backyard that your kids will love all summer long, you're gonna do fine. So the more vague, as you have suggested, the more vague your offer is, the less of it you're going to sell.
So good, so good. And guys, go read Storybrand too. How to build a Storybrand. It's that'll help you early on the marketing side as well. Just get both books, and dial in and clarify that message. Oh man, I know we're short for time. I have one final question. We do a segment on this show called the Golden Rule segment. This can go any direction you want. Doesn't have to do anything with your book if you don't want it to. But if your kids forgot everything you ever taught them, you and your wife taught them everything, to be responsible citizens, to love the Lord, to create wonderful products and services and serve people well and not be a jerk, all these things, and they forget everything you teach them except for one piece of advice or wisdom that they would carry with them for the rest of their life, somewhat like a golden rule, what would you want that to be, or what have you wanted that to be?
Graham, it's a beautiful question. It's a beautiful, beautiful question, especially when we're talking about our children. I have one daughter. She's going to be 2 years old in 2 months, and she is the joy of our lives. We have a great time with her. I read somewhere, and I can't remember where, I need to go back and find it, but that young women, children, get their ability to self-soothe from their mother and their self-esteem from their father. I don't know if that's true, but it gave me something to own. It gave me a purpose as a dad to just say, she's going to get her self-esteem from me. And I think personally, women who have low self-esteem get a lot more hurt than men who have men who have low self-esteem tend to hurt people, and women who have low self-esteem tend to get hurt. So, just as generals, and I realize there's gender fluidity and all that kind of stuff, but in general, I think that's pretty much true. And so every day I tell my daughter that she's beautiful, and what I want her to know, the foundation, if she can only remember one thing, is that she is worth being treated well. That's what I want her to know. You are worth being treated well, and if somebody doesn't treat you well, they cannot afford to be friends with you because that's the payment.
Amen.
And also treat other people well because everybody deserves to be treated well. And if you don't treat people well, it's because you've forgotten something, the value of a human being. So, if somebody doesn't treat you well, if a young man doesn't treat you well, that's the last time you're going to hang out with him until he figures his stuff out. That's what
sounds like a girl dad to me. I'm a dad of 2 daughters as well, and one's almost 14, and now I'm having to deal with some of that. But yes,
she has very high self-esteem. You seem like the type of guy. So I think
that's my only ammo is like raise the bar for them. So they're like, yeah, you're nowhere close to my dad. That's my goal is to just like raise it.
Absolutely, and they won't even know why. They're like, I'm not hanging out with that guy.
Exactly, it's subconscious. I love it. Oh, Don, this has been great, man. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the work you put out there in the world. It helps people, and you're one of those voices in the space that just makes it seem so doable and so approachable, and I just love that about you. So kudos to you. I'm glad that this book is having success already. Everyone, go pick up the book, How to Grow Your Small Business, a 6-step plan to help your business take off. Donald Miller, it has been an absolute pleasure, my man.
Graham, so awesome. Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I know I did. He's just such an incredible guy to talk to, and I just love having people like him in this space who can, again, take the complex, whether it's marketing or sales copy or scaling a business, and make it simple. Tell us what to focus on and what to ignore. So just so grateful for Donald. I'm grateful for this episode. I hope you took a lot out of it. And hopefully you've dived into or zeroed in on the 1 or 2 areas of those 6 key areas in your business that you're like, you know what, these are the areas I need to focus on in this next season of business. To dive into it more, check out the whole book, How to Grow Your Small Business, a 6-step plan to help your business take off. Like everything Donald puts out, it's incredibly easy to digest and take action on. As always, thanks for hanging out with us today. Hope you've had an incredible day. Thanks for spending part of it with us. We'll see you on another episode real soon.